Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Everybody's here today. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Kind of partly cloudy here today, in the low 50s. A little bit breezy out, but otherwise it's nice. I mean, it's not bad. At least it ain't raining right now. We got a break from that. But I hear we're probably going to get maybe a mix of snow and rain probably tomorrow. So, oh well. Won't last probably. It'll just melt right off because it's getting too warm for the snow to linger. But and you talk about lingering. So anyway, I got a couple of videos here, but you know, before I get into that, I just want to say here, because it's my show and I can, that you know, I went down to get something to eat for lunch and over at Applebee's, and when I was in there, you know, there was a lot of people there when I got there at about 2:30, I guess it was. A lot of people in there, a lot of kids, a lot of, you know, so, you know, and it just, while I'm there, I'm going over like news items to put on the video, okay, for today. So I know my therapist has been on my ass about, you know, you need to regulate that better because it's bringing your mood down because you watch so much of that shit. Well, it's like, I know, but, you know, to find some, you know, to pick and choose some of the best videos to put up here, you know, I have to go through a lot of videos. I have to watch a lot of shit each day in order to say, okay, well, this one might be a good one to put up, or this one might be a good one to put up. And so I have to go through a lot of videos. So, but while I was sitting there doing that, you know, picking the ones I wanted to use, you know, just looking around at people and I'm thinking, you know, how many of these people in here even realize what I know from watching all this stuff, how bad things are right now, okay? How the economy is just free falling, and at any day something could happen to any one of these folks here who have jobs or something. They could lose their job, you know, or prices will just next morning could go up through the fucking roof, because, you know, of the tariffs and stuff creating problems, you know, and you know, people's economic status right now could shift like that. That's how bad things are right now, and they may not know as much about what's really going on as I do, because I watch every day, go through, you know, hours of fucking videos of commentary and stuff like that, items, you know, and not just videos, but, you know, I go through, you know, articles online, you know, or stuff from newspapers that are online, you know, just to see what's there. I mean, I have a routine basically, so I go through sources and stuff, but I see so much that it can almost bring one to tears to think that the good days are over in this country and we don't even see it yet, or at least a lot of us don't. We might be hearing about it, but we're not really seeing it yet, but it could be very noticeable in a very short time, just like that. You know, and the Dow Jones can only fall so far before it hits bottom, and then when it does, okay. So that brings me to my first video here from the Humanist Report, and it's about how it seems like Fox News is having a real hard time recently trying to spin what Trump has done. Okay, and we'll go to that video here, and then we'll discuss that here on the other side. So let's go to the video.
While certainly the economy will be adjusting, the negotiations will continue. We are really, really excited and very grateful to President Trump's leadership and being willing to be bold and fearless in facing some pretty big policy challenges around the world.
So what is the impact on farmers then?
Well, we'll see.
With the market down 1,238 points right now on the Dow Industrials and the Nasdaq down 800 right now, and the market's not even open. Futures indicating a very ugly opening. Now would be the time for some clarity on extending the tax cuts.
I think everyone understands the national security reason in the long run to take an economic hit in order to decouple from China. The question is, why are we needlessly ticking off Canada?
People are unclear as far as how he arrived at some of these tariffs, which also opens the door, in my view, to some negotiation. But the national security issues here are clear.
As you saw, the Trump sycophants on Fox Business News were trying as hard as they possibly could to rationalize Donald Trump's nonsensical tariffs, but they're struggling to do that because at the end of the day, these people are loyal to capital and capital only. But they also don't want to offend Donald Trump. However, when you wake up and you see stock market numbers like this in the aftermath of Donald Trump's so-called Liberation Day, you can't not be visibly shaken. And they were. You can see the panic in their eyes. So they're trying to strike this balance where they're making it clear that they're worried about the future of the economy as well as their stock portfolios, of course. But at the same time, they don't want to overtly attack Donald Trump over this nonsensical policy. So they're forced to do this really weird and awkward dance where they have to speculate that he has some sort of a broader strategy that they're just not privy to, or pretend like he's playing 4D chess, even though they obviously don't believe that. They know this is stupid. And if you read between the lines, their actual reaction is something more like, what the fuck? Not, oh, he must be playing 4D chess. He must have a plan, right? Because how could you not have that reaction if your entire show centers on business, on capitalism? Now, to show you what I mean, Maria Bartiromo of Fox Business, she spoke to Brooke Rollins, who is Donald Trump's agriculture secretary, and over the course of the last couple of months, Rollins has come on this show over and over again and assured Bartiromo that they're doing everything in their power to bring down the cost of eggs. The only problem is that Trump's tariffs are going to directly undermine that effort. So just watch and take a look at the reaction.
Where are the eggs coming from that you're importing?
Well, we're importing from Turkey. We're importing from South Korea. We're talking to a few other countries right now. But again, at the end of the day, once our farms are repopulated in just a couple of months, it doesn't take long for those baby hens to get to the egg laying point, that once that happens, then we'll go back to pretty much using all American laid eggs.
So then that means that eggs will be tariffed if you're taking them from Turkey, right? That's part of the tariff plan.
Yes, I mean, all to be determined. We're all in negotiations, but yes, that's a possibility.
I mean, if you're a Fox News propagandist, how are you supposed to spin that? You're importing eggs to bring down the cost, yet you're imposing arbitrary tariffs on the country you're importing the eggs from, which will raise the cost, thus making the importation of eggs completely pointless if your goal is to bring down the cost. I mean, even the most skilled propagandists can't polish that turd. And that's why some Fox Business hosts have just kind of given up, because even though they know that, you know, their job is basically to spin everything that Trump does as a positive, sometimes you just can't do that. Sometimes you just have to basically give up and say, I can't defend this. Not going to attack them, but I can't defend this. Now, not all industries are going to be affected equally. For example, 900 American workers across 5 different Stellantis supply factories were laid off, and this came after the company announced that they were pausing production in direct response to Donald Trump's tariffs. So the auto industry in particular is going to be negatively affected, and Trump's goal is to use these tariffs to spark a manufacturing boom in America, but it's not that simple, and this led to a pretty heated debate on Fox Business between two hosts, one of them who was trying to spin it as a positive, and the other who was just like, whatever, bro. That's not what she said. I'm paraphrasing, but just watch.
Well, BMW is going to rethink South Carolina because it's not going to import tariffed parts, engines from Germany, then to send those vehicles to export them. So again, it will mean if that plant stays open, it will mean fewer jobs potentially because they're going to make those vehicles somewhere else.
Well, where are they going to sell them now?
They sell them to China. They sell them to China and they sell them to Europe.
So every American customer who could buy a BMW could be replaced overnight by a Chinese customer.
They sell them they export them to China.
No, but I'm saying you can't make
they import the parts, which will be tariffed, and then they will export them from the United States where they're manufactured back to Europe, where they will be tariffed again, and then to China and nations around the globe, right? So these are the problems that a U.S. manufacturer faces because the parts are coming from somewhere else.
They can also just make the parts here. They can make the car.
No, they can't. Absolutely not. That's a fallacy.
It's impossible?
Yeah, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Have at it.
It wouldn't take that long. Anyway, as far as the payments are concerned.
To build German engines in the United States. Okay.
Damn. Now, Charles Payne, him defending this doesn't necessarily surprise me, even though he's the money guy, because to him, dick riding is a sport. I mean, Trump could shit down his throat, literally, and he would defend it. He'd say, oh, well, thank you, President Trump, because you're just giving me all of your vitamins and minerals or something. Like, that's disgusting, but you get the point. The man will not criticize Donald Trump. But, I mean, if you care about money, and this is fucking with your bag, you should maybe speak up, otherwise people are going to think that you're a fucking useless hack. Anyways, in all fairness, I'm not automatically against tariffs every single time. They're an economic tool that could benefit American companies if used intelligently. Trump is not doing that. Arbitrary tariffs across the board are just going to amount to an effective tax hike on American consumers for virtually all products. We've explained this before. I don't want to get into it, but it's not going to be good for our wallets. And the retaliatory tariffs are going to cause prices to spike even higher. I mean, the Nintendo Switch 2 was just announced yesterday. It's $450, but Kotaku is reporting that it could be as high as $600 in the end because of Trump's tariffs and retaliatory tariffs. I mean, games are already $80, so how much higher will they go? How many more things will we be priced out of because of these tariffs? But Trump is trying to frame these tariffs as reciprocal tariffs. But even conservative economists are looking at that and pointing out how the math ain't mathin', as the kids say. And HuffPost reports the Trump administration is seemingly determining tariffs by dividing the trade deficit they have with any given country with exports. And a journalist for the Washington Examiner, which is a conservative outlet for those who don't know, explained how what they're doing, like the way they're calculating this, doesn't make any sense.
I hope we're all correct that this is about negotiation and that's why there's the stagger date. It did not instill confidence in me because the basis of their justification for the national emergency legally is manufacturing capacity, even though real manufacturing output per the Bureau of Labor Statistics is up 51% since NAFTA was passed. But also the biggest issue with the tariffs in my estimation is how they estimated that reciprocal amount. It is not actually based on what trade.gov, which is the Trump administration's official trade website, they say Vietnam only has an average effective tariff of 15%. On the tariff sheet, it says 90. Taiwan, 6%. Tariff sheet says 32%. Switzerland only has 1.7% average tariff rate on our exports. And yet Trump claims that they tariff us 61%. And it's because they use this incredibly crude algorithm of doing the trade deficit of a given country divided by the number of imports we have from that country. That's not what a non-tariff barrier should mean. It should mean things like environmental bans, carbon taxes, GMO bans, and whatnot.
In other words, this is such a dumb move that it has to be the case that it's a negotiating tactic. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. It's completely devoid of strategy on its face. So Trump has to have some broader plan that he's just not telling us about, right? Right? Maybe, but it's not what these people think. Now, there's a lot of focus on the cost of consumer goods going up, rightfully so, but this could literally trigger an economic recession, possibly a depression. So just talking about how the costs for consumers will increase really misses the forest for the trees. Like, we are looking at mass economic pain if Trump doesn't back down, which is why even the goons at Fox Business can't unequivocally defend Trump like this, because if the economy crashes and they defend it, they'll be forever discredited. Not that they care much about that anyway, since they're defending a fascist in the first place, but still, at the end of the day, their loyalty is to capital, which is why, they have to make sure that they're looking out for large multinational corporations, which is why they're very politely trying to get Donald Trump to pump the brakes before they fuck up the bag for a lot of the people that, they're shilling for, the CEOs, the business class. But it's not just Fox News propagandists who are concerned. It's Republican lawmakers as well who've made it clear that things could get really bad if Trump doesn't back down. And when I say bad, they're not concerned about how bad it's going to be for the economy, because even though these politicians are shills for their corporate donors, they care more about their political careers. They're going to be okay economically, they're rich, but politically, this is going to be devastating for Republicans, and they are trying to communicate that to Trump emphatically whenever they can.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hott Smolley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
In the long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too. Nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs is going to be on the economy.
So they know they're cooked. Also, Republican Senator Tom Moran told Manu Raju of CNN that he is surprised that the tariffs aren't more targeted and thinks that we should focus on our adversaries, not our allies. And I love how everything they do, they have to use kid gloves when it comes to Donald Trump, because they're trying to say, look, we're all fucked. But they're trying to say that in the nicest way possible so as to not offend Donald Trump or provoke him or his supporters. But at the same time, they know that this could be a death warrant for the Republican Party, assuming we have free and fair elections, because as Stacey K put it on Twitter, we've done this mass tariff thing 3 times in American history: 1828, 1930, 2025, all spaced out about 100 years apart, because everyone who remembered the last one needs to be dead for the next one to happen. The last 2 caused the Depression. I hope this one makes us rich, though. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to work this time. Definitely. But to the credit of the American people, they're at least smart enough to know how devastating this is going to be to the economy. Not smart enough to vote against the guy saying he's going to impose universal tariffs, but smart enough to know that this is not the best idea, to put it mildly. And Harry Anton of CNN is going to break down just how unpopular this move is.
The press secretary criticized the people she calls the naysayers when it comes to these tariffs. Who are the naysayers?
The naysayers are the majority of the American public. It's the American people who are the naysayers. Oppose new tariffs on other countries. All goods, look at this. 56% of Americans oppose new tariffs on all goods. How about cars in particular? 56% of Americans oppose new tariffs on imported cars and car parts. Look, the bottom line is the American people oppose. No, no, no. They do not want new tariffs. I looked at a ton of polling. It's really hard to find any in which you find folks supporting new tariffs, maybe against China, but against all other countries, especially our allies. No, no, no. Oppose.
So Caroline Leavitt again told Kate in that discussion that the president is laser focused on reducing prices. What do voters say that they believe the tariffs will do to prices?
What do voters believe the tariffs will do to prices? At least in the short term, tariffs will raise prices. Again, what do we get here? 72% of Americans overall say that the prices will go up in the short term. How about among Republicans, the Republican base? This was a shocker to me. 64% of Republicans believe that tariffs will in fact cause prices to go up in the near term. And get this, just 5% of Americans overall believe that tariffs, at least in the short term, will bring down prices. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know, Mr. Berman, that 72 beats 5.
So nobody wants this. And the problem is that even if the cope from the Fox Business hosts is correct, and Trump is using this as a negotiating tactic, and he's going to back down at some point, the problem is that it may be already too late. Because even if he reverses course, the damage that he's caused is already going to be lasting. Trump catalyzed a reordering of the global economy in ways that are inconceivable, in ways that were inconceivable just a couple of months ago. I mean, China, Japan, and South Korea are considering a joint response to Trump's tariffs. On top of that, the European Commission is considering a ban on U.S. soybeans in response to Trump's tariffs, which could be devastating. Canadian retailers are turning away products produced by American companies in part because of the significant decrease in demand for U.S.-made products in Canada because of the nationwide Buy Canada movement that emerged in response to Donald Trump's attacks on Canada. And the Canadian Prime Minister explained this phenomenon that's happening and what's taking place and how it is going to have a lasting effect.
The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over. Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. The 80-year period when the United States embraced the mantle of global economic leadership, when it forged alliances rooted in trust and mutual respect, and championed the free and open exchange of goods and services, is over.
Again, we're talking about Canada, our closest ally, our neighbor, north of the border. This is what it's come to. But I mean, can you blame them? Can you blame any other country who's taking this stance, who's trying to untether themselves from the United States? Because we have no credibility. We're an impulsive rogue state that can't be trusted, not just in terms of trade, but in terms of treaties too. I mean, we joined the Paris Climate Accord, then we leave. Then we enter again. Then we leave again. We sign the JCPOA with Iran. They comply. Then we duck out for no reason whatsoever. And now Trump wants to make another deal with them after he tore up the first one. Is this the kind of country that you want to strengthen ties with? Of course not. You want to disassociate yourself from this country. You want to detach from them economically because they're just too impulsive. They can't be trusted. So that's what we're seeing. It's going to force countries into the arms of China. It's going to isolate us globally. And it's going to hurt the economy. Now, Trump thinks that we don't need other countries. We're fine on our own. We could just produce everything. He's going to find out the hard way that that's not the way that things work. And Americans don't want that. You think you're going to be able to get that shiny new Nintendo Switch too that's produced by a Japanese company? No, you won't be able to do that. Americans get cheap consumer goods from all over the world. Our entire lives will be changed because of this. Like, the low cost of consumer goods is kind of what keeps the peasants in line. It's the circus to the bread and circus that they're providing for us. So if you uproot that, then you really start to pull apart the fabric that's holding society together. And that's what Trump doesn't seem to realize. And he's going to realize just how wrong he is pretty quickly. So the damage that he's doing to the country, it's going to last generations. That is, if America can even survive a minimum of 4 more years of Donald Trump. I don't know how bad it's going to be in 4 years if things are this bad just 2 months into his presidency. He is destroying the economy. He's destroying democracy, and he's making us an international pariah. The question is, why is he doing all of this? It's not just stupidity. Perhaps he does have a strategy, but it's not some 4D chess economic strategy. There's something much more nefarious about what he's doing. And I talked about before how he might be purposefully trying to crash the economy so he can enrich himself as well as his oligarch buddies, because after the 2008 recession and the economic downturn that COVID caused, rich people got richer. They made out like bandits. So Trump destroying the economy might be another way to facilitate another massive transfer of wealth from working class Americans to elites. But on top of that, it could be a ploy to just consolidate power. And Senator Chris Murphy explains why that it might be misguided to just even refer to tariffs as economic policy altogether, because it might not be that simple. He explains those trying to understand the tariffs as economic policy are dangerously naive. No, the tariffs are a tool to collapse our democracy, a means to compel loyalty from every business that will need to petition Trump for relief. This week, you will read many confused economists and political pundits who won't understand how the tariffs make economic sense. That's because they don't. They aren't designed as economic policy. The tariffs are simply a new, super dangerous political tool. He later goes on to explain the tariffs are a tool to erode the independence of institutions and businesses. Now, one by one, every industry or company will need to pledge loyalty to Trump in order to get sanctions relief. What could Trump demand as part of a quiet loyalty pledge? Public shows of support from executives for all of his economic policy, contributions to his political efforts, promises to police employees support for his political opposition. The tariffs are designed to create economic hardship. Why? So that Trump has a straight-faced rationale for releasing them business by business or industry by industry. As he adjusts or grants relief, it's a win-win. The economy improves and dissent disappears. In other words, you cause a problem so that way you can swoop in and offer a solution while looking like a hero. It's mafia shit. And I do think that there is some truth to what Chris Murphy is saying, because there's no other explanation for such a nonsensical economic policy. He is wielding economic pain against us like it's a weapon to enrich himself and consolidate power. He's basically destroying the economy and our democracy for self-serving reasons, which is despicable, but certainly not below him. So we don't know how bad things are going to get, but if he doesn't back down like everybody is expecting, it's going to get very bad, so brace yourself.
You know, things are bad when Rand Paul and John Kennedy are the sane ones here that people are looking to for, that they seem to be the ones that have a better grasp on the reality of things than the rest of the Republican Party. Yeah. And how I had said, at the start, how do people, at Applebee's today knew how bad things were? Well, 72% of the country is predicting that, things are going to get bad. Okay? So I'm not the only one that knows, how things are. There are people that are aware of what's happening, and they see the same thing. That what Trump is telling people and what economists are saying and what the stocks are showing does not add up. Okay? Trump can't make it make sense. All right, he's just asking people to have faith that the economy is going to bring back goodies for everybody. But the truth is, I think his charm in getting people to believe him is pretty well eroded now. I think that a lot of people, even Republicans, are just not listening to his bullshit. Faith and politics, faith and economy never mixes. Okay, asking people to believe the pie in the sky, that good things are coming, okay, it's not working. Okay, even the Republican Party, more than half of the Republican Party doesn't believe what he's saying to them now. Okay, so there's going to be fallout for what Trump's doing here for decades to come. Okay, really decades. I'm not exaggerating here. Okay, what he's done in 2.5, 3 months here is going to take decades to repair. Like he said in the video, the United States will never be trusted again. Okay, and honestly, this has been something I've been wrestling with before even Trump was, even a thing. Okay. That every time we change presidents, everything that we was once doing, we don't do anymore. And I'm thinking, well, how can you do that? How can you make deals with other countries and stuff like that? The global warming deals that we make and stuff. And then turn around, the next president comes in and says, fuck all that. Okay? The Kyoto Accords, all these things. How can the rest of the world depend on us to lead the way when we decide we're going to lead today, but we're not going to lead tomorrow? You can't deal with a country like that. And I often wonder what's advantageous for other countries to do business with us when we can't even follow our own goddamn rules. You know what I'm saying? So this was a long time coming, to be honest. Trump only put the final straw on the camel's back, is what he did. But for years, all of our presidents before that have done these things where we're on one side of things and then the next we're on the other. Nobody can tell where America stands on anything practically anymore now. So why put us involved with anything with the globe? Okay, just exclude us from all these things. Never take an agreement made with this country as set in stone. It never is. Okay, we're terrible with that. We've always been. But Trump has really exacerbated that here. And the rest of the world is like, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. We're not dealing with the United States ever again. And I can't blame Canada or the EU or anybody for thinking that way. They should have took this stand a long time ago, okay? But what's happening now is the rest of the world is going to create a trade thing of their own. And excluding the United States. In other words, the United States will just exist in a bubble, essentially. while the rest of the world does what it does, the way we were doing things when the United States was part of it, but now we're not going to be. We're the man out. And that's going to lead to us pulling out of NATO and you know what I'm saying? So the United States is actually going to continue to isolate itself because of this. You know, because when you're not going to do trades with the U.S. or you're going to penalize the U.S. heavily for things, then before you know it, the United States is going to say, well, you know, throw the finger to the rest of the world. We're pulling out of NATO. You guys deal with things yourself. That's the next step. That's what's going to come now. Okay. So I see that happening. And to think that, you know, people in this country think, well, the United States should make everything. Well, we were making everything at one time. So why did we end up getting imports from other countries? It's because it was cheaper, right? And companies found it advantageous to their businesses to hire foreign labor to do things to make that we would buy. Okay, you see, that's how it started. The United States, yeah, was making a lot of things, but they were thinking, well, you know, we can reduce costs by paying workers less, but the American people aren't going to get paid less. They won't have it. Okay, they're making unions and everything. So in order to sidestep the unions and all that, we're going to set up business elsewhere. And they wanted it to be a free trade thing, which, you know, NAFTA brought around. They wanted it to be treated so that way the expense on the businesses was less. So they could sell things cheaper. And that's how things stopped being made in the United States. And we started buying our shit elsewhere. Well, basically, Trump is, I think that's what he's planning on doing. He wants us to go back to having it the other way around, where the businesses are back to paying through the nose, you know, to find people to work for them. Because nobody wants immigrants or anybody in this country that doesn't have that's not a citizen, you know, so we put a roadblock on that. So what does that mean? You know, the cost of goods is going to go through the roof here. You know, the farmers are going to be asked to get more for their products because they'll be hiring American labor if that's where we're headed here. You know, it's a problem that we thought we had solved, but apparently corporations didn't feel like, you know, it was giving them enough money, I guess. I don't know, because they were still screaming, we want more tax breaks, we want more tax breaks. You know, we were making it so easy for businesses to make profit, you know, and we were allowing them to do what they were doing so they could, but it was never enough. And so now we've come to this point where we're like, okay, now everything's going to be dialed all the way back to the beginning, where the only people you're going to be able to get help from are just American people. Yeah, that's going to put people to work, but then guess what happens? They're going to want demands. They're going to want health care. They're going to want this. They're going to want that. They're going to want higher wages. Okay? And businesses who were making good money before, now they're going to find the profit margins are less. Okay? And coming from companies who want more, they're not going to get more. So how this helps out businesses here, I don't know. I don't see it. Nobody can. All right? Because in the long run, it's going to hurt everybody. Even the friends of Trump who are wealthy are going to notice that things are not easy for them, despite renewing tax breaks. Those tax breaks aren't going to mean shit by the end of the year after all the losses they curtail. You know, it's really going to be bad for them too. Because look, how can you close up jobs and people not work and then expect people to spend or to keep buying? You know, you can't do that. It just doesn't work. The math doesn't add up. Okay. And so stores like Walmart, Dollar Tree, you know, places that get stuff imported from, they're going to hurt. They're going to hurt because those fucking places ain't going to be able to get nothing for cheap. Okay, to sell to anybody. So they're going to notice a decline in sales. And as people, you know, keep getting laid off and small businesses suffer, you're going to see, you know, a lot of people just not able to buy. It's a trickle up effect, not trickle down, trickle up. When the bottom can't buy, the top can't live high on the hog anymore. They have to cut overhead, basically. Is there a nefarious reason to destroy the economy? I mean, Chris Murphy was quoted saying that if you make it so the businesses have to feed off the government all the time in order to survive, that now government will control business. And they will have to pledge loyalty to Trump to get tariff relief. Yeah, I mean, if that's what's going on, but I don't think anybody right now can think that far ahead about what Trump's really up to. In fact, because Trump isn't really saying. All he's telling people is to have faith. It's all going to come your way, you know, and nobody can believe it. But everybody's trying to figure out, why is he doing this? It's as obvious as, you know, as can be, that what he's doing doesn't have a good ending here. Every economist, I mean, and even the most basic economist, you know, amateur economist, doesn't see, you know, anything good that's going to come out of this. Okay, if you just sit down and do a little bit of math, you can see, you know, hey, nobody's making out here. Not even business right now. The stock market's a good indicator here of how people are feeling there. You know, you're super wealthy. They're not very comfortable at all about where things are headed right now. It's very scary for them. And anytime Trump says anything positive, it's not reflecting on the market. I mean, usually when a president says things are good or something, you know, then you start to notice a rise, right? A little bit of a bump there. But it's been a nosedive. Every morning I wake up and I look at my little Alexa ticker there thing when I got on next to the bed. Down, every fucking day, every morning, down, it's still dropping, okay? and it's been like that so bad that Fox News, you know, they can't even spin it as a good thing. They took their ticker thing that goes at the bottom of the screen off because of the fact that, hey, what they're saying and what's being shown are two different things. Okay? They're contradicting themselves at the same time. They're trying to spin propaganda. The evidence is showing that it's not good. No matter what they're saying, the stocks are still dropping. So who are you going to trust to know better? The people on ground zero, which is Wall Street, or the people sitting in their fucking offices and, you know, reporting news or whatever kind of bullshit they want to report? Who are you going to put your faith in? Ain't going to be Fox News. They ain't going to know nothing. Because it sounds to me these days Fox News doesn't really know what to spin anymore because they're having a hard time believing anything Trump says. Okay? They're starting to turn on each other there at Fox. Okay? So it's pretty bad when you look at the overall picture here of what's happening, a snapshot of America today. That I think a lot of Americans are just don't want to think too much about what's happening, but I think in the back of their minds they know it's not good and it's not going to get good no matter what Trump says. And, you know, implementing these kind of bludgeon tariffs the way he's been doing it in this haphazard fashion without much planning, mind you, it's not very effective. It's not. It's only hurting everything. You're pissing everybody off around the world. All right? And that's not good either on a political standpoint. And, you know, it's going to hurt the Republican Party for years to come if Trump keeps doing this and they don't stop him or they don't try to stop him. Okay? So let's go to a commercial break here, and then we'll come back here with another video.
This is me! I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
In some wonderful news, the state of Wisconsin understood the assignment. And in some not so shocking news, Florida didn't. And with hurricane season right around the corner, good job, guys. But back to Wisconsin. The best part about that entire election is that Elon Musk spent a whopping $25 million to infiltrate the election. That's not counting the $15.99 he spent on this hat to pander to the people who have spat in the face of evolution. It's really great to see how all those Doge savings are being spent. When are you going to cut those checks for your naive supporters who still believe you're in it for them and not all those rare minerals that fund your empire that can be found in the countries we suddenly have beef with? But he wore a cheese hat. But despite Elon Musk using millions to buy the election, Brad Schimmel lost to Susan Crawford. He gave a speech in front of his supporters last night to let them know that he graciously called Susan Crawford to concede the election. And of course, boos and people yelling they cheated could be heard. Shockingly, Schimmel, as a Republican, has a shred of dignity, and he tried to calm the crowd down by telling them they need to accept the results. What an American hero, am I right? The bar is in hell, ladies and gentlemen, in order for me to give praise to a Republican. As far as the race in Florida was concerned, one of the elections were held to fill the spot of brilliant, definitely not a security risk, and avid emoji user Mike Waltz. Who, by the way, this just in, it's being reported that his staff was using a Gmail account to communicate sensitive military plans. Crying emoji, crying emoji, crying emoji. But Floridians said, that's fine. Quite literally, because they elected Republican Randall Fine to take his place. And good old Randall is ready to get to work for his constituent. Yes, singular. As he promised in a tweet to Donald Trump saying, I won't let you down. My God, those knees must be blistered and exhausted, am I right? What a sniveling little bitch. Another winner in Florida was, God, this pains me to say, Greek-American Jimmy Patronis. And to that, all I have to say is, na se piasi kolofaura yatrefti. Torsena. So many scandals with that guy, and there's not enough time. Good luck, Florida. Anyways, bye.
Don't look up. Elon Musk's rockets keep blowing up. Pieces falling out of the sky. Airports across Florida shut down. Planes are crashing. Near misses. Dangerous. What are Donald Trump and Elon Musk doing? Slashing the Federal Aviation Administration, the one government agency that protects you in the sky. It's crazy. Elon Musk doesn't care. He doesn't fly like the rest of us. For him, it's private planes, private airports. But there's another reason Elon Musk wants to gut the FAA. It's the agency that regulates his rockets that keep blowing up. The FAA has fined Musk's rocket company hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, by the way, you're paying for those exploding rockets. Musk gets billions from taxpayers. He wants to build spaceships to take billionaires to Mars. Yeah, nuts. Elon Musk is out of control.
Hello, Daniel Caldwell. This is the VA Crisis Response Hotline. We're calling to inform you that your emergency request for in-person counseling for PTSD has been denied. To stop fraud, waste, and abuse, these services will be replaced by VetCare AI, powered by Grok, an X company. President Trump and Doge Chairman Musk, thank you for your service and being part of our efforts to eliminate waste. Have a nice day. Press 1 to repeat this message. Press 2 to return to main menu. Press 3 to leave a message, and an AI operator will call you back if your problem is deemed unwasteful. Goodbye.
Feeling my husband with 8 inches was like reliving our first time. Thanks to the salt trick, he makes me gush like a broken pipe. And just last month, I was ready to divorce my husband. But then he showed me his new 8-inch magic wand. Now, I can barely hold it in my hand. This salt trick is hands down the biggest advantage any man can have heading into 2025. I wasn't kidding when I said you should take it easy with this trick. It can turn a sad little twig into a raging anaconda. It's ridiculously simple. And it's heartbreaking to see so many men missing out on the chance to finally make their women happy. So far, this easy homemade trick has helped over 29,000 men naturally increase both size and thickness. This is the same secret top-paid adult film actors use to keep their bats way above average. It's also how they manage to handle 3, 4, or even 5 women in a row without losing their stamina. The best part? It works for men of all ages, takes just 30 seconds before bed, and can give you some incredible results in no time. If you want to skip the details and go straight to the video, just click the Watch Now button below to learn how to pull off this simple but powerful trick tonight. You should probably watch it alone, if you know what I mean. Don't waste any more time. Watch it before it gets taken down or you can't find this video anymore. Your wife or girlfriend will thank you for the rest of her life.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, well, before I go to the video, last night I was looking up, reading stuff on ABC News on their webpage, and they had an article there that was posted late last night, and it's entitled, Senators Introduce Bipartisan Bill to Limit Trump on Tariffs. As markets around the world slumped and other countries plotted retaliation in reaction to President Trump's sweeping tariffs, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley and Democrat Maria Cantwell introduced bipartisan legislation Thursday that would require Congress to approve any new tariffs, and House Democrats are preparing to try to force a vote to terminate the tariffs. Reaction to the tariffs and their fallout was predictably split along party lines on Capitol Hill, although some Republicans said they were concerned with how the markets reacted. The Senate bill would require the president to notify Congress of new tariffs within 48 hours and for Congress to act to approve those tariffs within 60 days. It's unclear whether the bill would have the support it needs to pass, but it comes less than a day after 4 Republicans voted with Democrats to pass a resolution that would block Trump's tariffs on Canadian products. Cantwell said hers and Grassley's bill comes at a time when Congress should, quote, reassert itself in our constitutional duties, unquote. She said it was modeled after the War Powers Resolution of 1973 and would, quote, reestablish limits on the president's authority, unquote, specifically in relation to imposing tariffs without Congress's approval. Quote, Congress in the War Powers Act decided to reclaim its authority because they thought a president had overreached, unquote, Cantwell said. Cantwell and Grassley serve on the Senate Finance Committee. Grassley, a former chairman, has long advocated for reestablishing Congress's role in trade policy. In the House, the National Emergencies Act that Trump used to impose new tariffs allows Congress to vote on a resolution of disapproval that would effectively cancel them. Congress will have to vote within 15 days after Trump notifies Congress of the new declaration, Democratic aides told ABC News. While Republicans could pass a new measure to prevent Congress from stopping Trump's policies, Democrats believe Republicans would pay a greater political price. Quote, any rule change will be a vote supporting the president's tariffs, unquote, a senior Democrat aide told ABC News. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the tariffs one of the quote-unquote dumbest decisions Trump has made as president, quote, and that's saying something, unquote. Quote, Donald Trump has single-handedly created a financial forest fire, unquote, Schumer said on the Senate floor. Schumer called on Speaker Mike Johnson to call the House back into session to take up a Senate-passed resolution that would block tariffs on Canadian goods. Republicans Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul voted with Democrats on Wednesday to pass the bill that Paul co-authored with Democrats Tim Kaine. McConnell on Thursday said, quote, trade wars with our partners hurt working people the most, unquote. Asked if Trump had made the right move, Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota said, quote, we'll find out, unquote. Quote, the one thing we do know is that the president was very clear that he thinks there should be fair trade agreements with our partners, our friends, and our allies, unquote, Rounds said. Quote, this is his first step. Let's find out how they respond, unquote. North Dakota GOP Senator Kevin Cramer said he was comfortable with where his constituents stood on Trump's tariffs. Quote, my own constituents voted for this, unquote, he said. Quote, it's not like Donald Trump is surprising anybody. He has signaled his strong support for tariffs from the very beginning. He's exercised it in the past, and with that he got 66% of the vote in North Dakota. So with his promise, they trusted him. So yeah, I'm comfortable with where my constituents are on it, unquote. And while he said he was concerned with how markets reacted, Cramer said longer trends will be more telling. Quote, well, you know, the market is emotional. It always has been, unquote, Cramer said. Quote, I never look at one day of the market and see a trend, so you know, we'll see. But I'm hoping that, like I said, that it finds a bottom and then it starts finding a ceiling much later, unquote. Democrat Senator Chris Coons of Rhode Island called the tariffs, quote, insane, and said the rollout was, quote, another thing that is incoherent, poorly planned, and will have significant consequences, unquote. Kaine said that some Republicans who voted against his resolution on Wednesday told him that he wasn't wrong, but they were going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. Asked if he thought they might raise their voices as they play out, he said, quote, I do, because I think they're going to hear from their constituents louder and louder and louder. They're going to see what is not going to work, and when it doesn't work, I can't imagine that they're going to stand by as, you know, the president pushes our economy into a recession, unquote. Trump deserves the benefit of the doubt. Does he? Can someone explain to me, or, you know, can Kaine explain to me why Trump deserves the benefit of the doubt? When was the last time that SOB ever said the fucking truth about anything? Huh? He deserves the benefit of the doubt. This is a man who went bankrupt 6 times running a fucking casino where you're given money. He's about to bankrupt the United States as a whole. But we're supposed to give him the benefit of the doubt. We're supposed to give him the benefit of the doubt. The boy who cried wolf. Should we give him the benefit of the doubt that he's telling the truth? That's the problem, I think, part of it right there, with at least those Republicans who still want to ride this thing out. They want to give him the benefit of the doubt. A criminal, a rapist, a felon, okay? A traitor to the country. He stole secrets to go put in his bathroom, okay? We're supposed to give him the benefit of the doubt. All right, this next video is from the IHIP girls, and they're talking pretty much about the same thing here, but from a different perspective. So let's go to that, and then we'll discuss that on the other side.
States of America elected a convicted felon to be president of the United States, and said felon likes to get his advice from broken psychos. There's no other way to put it. Listen to this clip of Trump on Air Force One talking about his long, storied relationship with none other than psycho, eating the dogs, eating the cats, conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer.
About your meeting with Laura Loomer and Mike Waltz today, and how that came about. So Laura Loomer is a very good patron. She is a very strong person. And I saw her yesterday for a little while. She makes recommendations of things and people. And sometimes I listen to those recommendations like I do with everybody. I listen to everybody and then I make a decision. But I saw her yesterday. She was at the ceremony. And she'll always have something to say, usually very constructive.
What did she recommend?
She recommended certain people for jobs.
Adding to the administration, not
adding.
But not firing?
Well, she'll recommend that too. But yesterday she recommended some people for jobs.
Did she have anything to do with the NSC aides who were ousted?
No, not her.
Did you?
Okay, Laura Loomer is recommending people to work close to the president. And I want to take you down history lane a little bit. She was the one on the way to the debate with Kamala Harris who told him that wrongfully, blatant lie, that Haitian migrants in Ohio were eating dogs, eating cats, stealing people's pets for food. It was a lie. It was humiliating. That should have been the end of his campaign, but we have tens of millions of dumb people that vote. Okay, then he breaks up with Laura Loomer, and Elon Musk moves into the White House, literally moves into the White House, breaks all of democracy, takes a chainsaw, both figuratively and literally, to all of our institutions. Then he decides he wants to try to buy a Wisconsin SCOTUS seat, face plants, completely fails. During this time that Elon Musk is so close to Trump, Laura Loomer's on her channel. Elon Musk is a welfare queen. He needs to get away from Trump. This guy is an oligarch, yak, yak, blah, blah. Well, now she's just squeezed her way right back in. And this woman is giving the president of the United States advice. And I want to play for you a clip of Laura Loomer.
doing. I want to know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is? I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me. My life is ruined.
I mean, the one thread that all of MAGA have in common is that they feel so persecuted. This persecution complex, perpetual victimhood. Take ownership, Laura. You are a conspiracy theorist. But what's more alarming is I understand a crazy person in solitude, Trump being crazy by himself, Musk being a nut and a drug addict by himself, Laura Loomer broken, probably all sorts of inner child trauma and has been propagandized from right-wing media, her being a nut in solitude. The problem is all of these people have come together and are united, and they are running the United States of America. And Trump could be surrounded by smart experts on the economy. But instead, he's surrounded by billionaires that read an article here or read an article there, and they think, oh, we've got a great idea. Let's pick fights and trade wars and tariffs with this globalized world that we're in right now. And here is where the problem lies. Any credibility of us ever being a partner, once he starts the tariffs and then backs off and then brings them back on and backs off, has evaporated. Nobody on the planet will take this administration seriously at face value as a reliable partner, and they shouldn't, based on so much evidence, but primarily by the people with whom he surrounds himself with. And China has immediately retaliated, and the stock market is again in free fall. Put up the headline. China has announced it will impose additional tariffs on 34% of imports from the U.S. in retaliation for duties of the same amount unveiled by President Donald Trump this week as a part of his aggressive trade agenda. So listen, people are not scared of Trump. If anything, they're like, you're so weak right now. You want to prop up a very weakly positioned Russia. You were the richest country in the world 4 months ago, and you're voluntarily becoming a country that says, hey, we're going to give up our wealth and our standing in the free world. We're going to have a bunch of yahoos running the military that group text emoji war plans. We are a laughing stock of the highest order, and the world is moving on. Here is let's just listen to what Canada has to say about the United States.
The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over.
Okay.
So
everybody's moving on. They are going to continue being a part of a global community. Parts come from this country are imported to this country to make another part, etc. Can we do things to increase industry in the United States? Absolutely. But these plans should be planned. You don't just completely kneecap an entire economy when the result that you want takes years to implement. It's insanity. But here are other democracies in the world, and here is their response after Trump and these psychos, these crackheads surrounding him, after their harebrained plan. Listen to the rest of these people that are leaders of the free world who used to be our allies just 80 days ago.
But I want to be crystal clear. We are prepared.
The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend.
I deeply regret the United States' decision to impose 20% tariffs on imports from across the European Union. We see no justification for this.
They are all unjustified, unwarranted.
Okay, this is just a self-inflicted wound because these people they're either doing this for sport or out of breathtaking hubris or for Putin or a combination of all of the above. The problem is the bleeding of this doesn't just affect the 340 million Americans. It has a rippling and cascading effect to the entire world order. And they are going to try to block us out of being partners in future economic deals. It is insanity, and other countries are going to come fill this void. Americans like their money. Americans like their markets. Trump, the big let's make a deal guy, is the worst with the economy. And I'll get more on that in just a little bit. But right now, I want to play for you a clip from Fox News and how they're trying to spin this. Let's hear from complete sycophant Laura Ingraham.
Yesterday, Liberation Day. Who's happiest today about Trump's reciprocal tariffs? Well, obviously not Wall Street, not those who raked in big money offshoring jobs. In fact, they're busy trying to scare you into turning on Trump. The sky is falling. The sky is definitely falling. New fears.
Okay, this is what's so interesting is that, put up the next tweet. The stock market is so bad that Fox News took the ticker off its screen for the first time in their 28-year history. So while Laura Ingraham is selling and peddling this North Korean style bullshit about Trump, she says they want to scare you about Trump. They can't talk about policies anymore because their entire identity is about supporting the personality of a man that has to wear a full face of makeup every single day and is inherently anti-military, inherently anti-democratic, and wholly unintelligent and anti-intellectual. But I want to leave you all with something that I think is really telling. So the biggest myth that I think has ever been perpetrated on the American public is that Republicans are so good at business and that the Republican Party is so fiscally conservative and that businesses just love Republicans. Mind you, the data always shows that Republican presidencies wreck the economy and Democrats always come back in and clean it up. Not to mention that Democrats genuinely try to fight for equality for all, and Republicans only want equality for a few. But here is Mr. Art of the Deal. Here is the 7 largest Dow Jones drops in American history. Number 1 through 7, all Trump. All Trump. The top 7 drops in the Dow were all under Trump's watch. And this man has been on Twitter when Biden was president and said, if the Dow drops more than 1,000 points in 2 days, this should be grounds for impeachment. And of course, we know that these Republican congressmen are not going to grow a spine or, get their balls out of any position that they're constantly in and stand up to this man because they're scared of, think about it, they're scared of Trump, who gets his advice from Elon Musk, who acts like he speaks English as his second language, and Laura Loomer. This is the craziest of times. This is America's stupid era, and it's going to cause pain and destruction across the board because so many people are hell-bent on holding up the white man, and they just can't share the world with others. And this is the closing out days of the United States of America as we know it. All right, Pumps and I are trying to get to 1 million subs. Subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you all later.
Laura Loomer, what a fucking psycho, huh? Christ, she looks like a lot of the people I see that's on YouTube that do these hysterical fucking videos that are like, people criticizing movies. She's a Karen for sure. Well, we got 4 U.S. service members who died in Lithuania, and being transferred to, to have them buried and everything. Trump wasn't even there for that. He went golfing. In case you were wondering why he wasn't there, he had to go golfing. He did this while the economy was collapsing. He decided to go golfing. But we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? And, yeah, MAGA probably does feel very persecuted these days, okay? And that's only because it's their own guilt that makes them feel that way. I think they're feeling persecuted because they know they fucked up in the election. In their attempt to try to own the libs, they actually own themselves, okay? They defeated themselves. A lot of these people lost their status practically overnight by voting for Trump, and so yeah, I mean, look, when a kid does something wrong, okay, throws a rock through somebody's home window or something, and they won't admit they did it, okay, when they hear people talking about, oh Jesus, you see what happened to that guy's window across the street, busted, and that kid's going to start to feel more and more guilt. Eventually, it's going to eat at him. If he has a conscience, it's going to eat at him. And then he's going to start to feel like, people are trying to, make him talk or something. You know what I'm saying? What's happening is the kid starts to build a paranoia, and all of a sudden he's starting to feel persecuted until he breaks and admits he did it. That's what's MAGA. Is happening with MAGA right now. They threw the rock through the window. Everybody's talking about it, saying how bad it is and everything, and MAGA can't get into a corner deep enough to get away from it. And they're hearing it from their friends, they're from strangers, they're seeing the misery it's creating, because some people have recorded videos on YouTube about what happened to them after they voted for Trump, how Doge had cut their jobs, and they lost their work, and some of them were getting good paying jobs and now they're unemployed. These were Trump voters, and now all of a sudden, their lives have been upended because of their vote. And so MAGA feels persecuted. You're goddamn right, and they should. Rightly so, should feel persecuted, because they did fuck up. They took advice from somebody who was only in this for themselves and did what they did. They didn't listen to the other people who were trying to warn them, red alert. You ignored it, and then what happened? Okay, you got your ass kicked here, after you voted. And you can arrogantly tell me that, oh, everything's fine, everything's... I ain't gonna believe it. I don't believe you, okay? I'm hearing and seeing all kinds of evidence to the contrary, that a lot of MAGA people have already turned their backs on Trump. He's not as popular as you thought he was. Not anymore. He may have been popular enough to win an election, but that boat has sailed, my friend. That was 3 months ago. Here we are 3 months later, and look where we are. And if you think the numbers are still there, you're deluded. Okay, they're not. 75% of America feels that the country is in the wrong direction. We're going to see bad times. That includes Republicans in that fucking number. You don't get 75% without Republicans answering into that question too. All right? You don't get a percent that high unless it includes a lot of people from across the political spectrum. That's a big fucking percentage. That's what? 3/4 of the fucking country here. That means the only people left, the only percent left really is the MAGA left. I mean, that's MAGA right, rather, excuse me. I mean, it's only the MAGA people that are still thinking that Trump is got, big plans for us and all that. That's not enough to win a re-election. If he plans on running for president again, he ain't going to win. By the time these 4 years are up, and if there's still a country standing, and he's still alive and kicking, He ain't going to win no fucking third term if he wants to run for a third term. Okay? It's not going to happen. That honor will be bestowed on somebody else later on, but it ain't going to be on Trump. Okay? The only way he's going to get that third term is if he puts a gun to everybody's head and make sure they vote for him and nobody else. Okay? But otherwise, you know, he has cooked the Republican Party. You know, Republicans were right about him way back before when he was running for president the first time. They said back then he was a stain that they wanted to avoid because he could bring down the party. They knew back then that's what he was capable of doing because they knew he was a bullshitter. They knew he couldn't be trusted. But way back then, you know, and what was it, 2015 or something, you know, or before he became president the first time when he was campaigning, and all his Republican opponents, you know, during the primary, they were all saying it. You can't trust this guy. He's bad news. He will bring down the party. Well, here we are, all like 10 years later now. Okay? And guess what's happening to the party? They're all seeing it now. The Republican Party is finished. MAGA is finished. Okay? If nobody stops him, if none of the Republicans try to stand up to him, okay, and they just let this thing go, I mean, they're basically signing the GOP's death warrant. I mean, well, the GOP's already gone, okay? But what I'm talking about is MAGA itself, and what's left of the Republican Party will finally be put to death. Okay? Trump will see to that. Okay? And do you think Trump cares about that party? No, he doesn't care. Everybody keeps saying it. He's about himself. He's about himself. He does not care who he's got to step on or who he's got to bury in order for him to get what he wants. The Republican Party was just a means to an end. That's it. Nobody's going to get any goodies here from him being president, okay? It's all about him. What are you doing? Sit. It's all about him, people. You're going to have to believe that. If you're ever going to find out where the axe of blame should fall, the only way you're going to get to that answer is to first understand that Trump is selfish. He's not about the United States. He's not about you. He's not about me. He's in there for himself. When you understand and believe that, then you can begin to figure out what he's been up to. That's when you can get to the truth. You have to understand the man to understand the truth. Okay? That's what you have to do. Put aside all your preconceptions about this guy that made you vote for him, okay? Because clearly you were misguided. You're going to have to admit you fucked up. Put that aside and start to see him the way the rest of the country sees him, okay? And when you start to see that, then you're going to start, everything's going to start to fall into place, okay? It's like doing an investigation on a crime scene. Okay, you can't walk into a crime scene and say, I know who did it. I know what happened or what happened. No, every crime scene is unique. And in that crime scene, there's evidence that shows you the kind of person who did the crime. And in order to do that, you have to go in there with a clean slate. That means you have to forget everything you thought you knew, okay, and go in there fresh. So if you want to find out why Trump is doing what he's doing, you're going to have to go into that investigation with a clean slate, put aside everything you thought you knew about this guy, and understand that to get to the truth, you have to understand who the person really is. Okay? You have to understand who that person really is. And Trump didn't make much bones about hiding much of that while he was campaigning, whether or not you want to believe that. Things that he said that you thought he was just joking when no one was laughing. No, he wasn't joking. You know, I think he felt comfortable enough to say what he wanted to do because he knew everybody was going to eat his bread anyway, no matter how he buttered it. So it's just, that's how he is. There's this quote here from Charles Bukowski, and it goes, "The problem in the world today is that the intelligent people are full of doubts, while the stupid ones are full of confidence." You know, there is a lot of truth to that, okay? The stupid people out there are very confident Trump knows what he's doing, but the intelligent people are looking at the evidence and saying, I got doubts. I have doubts. You know, I don't think he knows what he's doing. And, you know, it's the ball is in our court here. How do we want to deal with this? It's, you know, we see what he's doing. We know it's not adding up. It's not matching his rhetoric. So are we going to sit here and just tap our fingers and feet and see what happens? Or are we going to actually do something to stop it before it gets to that point? I mean, it's really up to us. Trump has thrown us the ball, and we got the ball. Okay? Now, I know I read that article about, you know, them trying to put limits on him and the tariffs that he's doing here. But it's kind of too late for that, isn't it? I think it is. The ship's already sailed. The damage has been done. Okay? This should have been brought up way back 2 months ago when Trump started doing his blanket fucking executive orders. They should have thought of that. But they waited too long, and too much damage has been done. And I don't think Trump or anyone's going to care what they vote on if they decide that they're going to do that, because he don't listen to this shit. He ain't listening to anybody, not even the courts. Okay? And he's certainly going to surround himself with people who are going to fight any goddamn thing that the Senate or passes or doesn't pass. Okay, so it might have seemed hopeful, you know, at first, but when you think about what he's done so far, it just seems like words on paper don't mean nothing. Okay, sure, they're gonna go through the motions, but they're irrelevant now. The Senate and Congress are very irrelevant entities right now because Trump has shown it, that he can do what he wants and no one's stopping him. Not even the courts can stop him. So even the courts are irrelevant now. All that shit that he did to get the Supreme Court on his side, well, he's already got what he needed from them, so he doesn't even need them for that matter now. Okay? The Supreme Court can go to hell for all he cares. His executive orders and the people, the sycophants around him, are going to make sure that what he does gets done, whether they approve of it or not. So we're at the point, people, where resistance is going to have to come in a bigger form than just voting, because if he won't acknowledge the courts and he won't acknowledge the Congress or the Senate, do you think he's going to acknowledge an election? All right, that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. So subscribe, comment, and share, and keep your ears open for any health-related issues, and be a community, everybody. Help each other out. The days are going to come where we're going to be asked to help out more and more as things get worse. So try to do that, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.